Rick, I will keep my eye on the participant list and continue to let people in. But if you want to go ahead and get us started and kick us off, and we'll get going, and we'll get Ned up here and learn all tons of great economic information this morning. So we're excited.
All right. Thank you, Teresa. My name is Rick Zabrak. I'm the Economic and Workforce Development Director for Fairfield County and also the Executive Director for the Fairfield 33 Alliance. And the 33 Alliance, our role is to basically combine all of the economic development arms, chambers of commerce throughout the county to help advocate for increased business in our community, to market our county and focus on business attraction, as well as the latest thing, which has been a big focus, workforce development. And we're a public-private partnership. And every year we'd been doing an annual meeting, and Pickerington had been doing a big event. And we decided it just made a lot of sense to combine this and make it bigger, make it, the 33 Alliance along with the Chambers of Commerce, and being able to really focus on economic development in our community, but also the larger picture, and because obviously that affects us. Just real quick from a county standpoint, considering we're in a global pandemic and lots of other issues, we're in pretty good shape in Fairfield County. Obviously, there are plenty of people struggling, but when you look at things like our sales tax, which continues to be up actually year over year, our unemployment has declined to 4.3% in October, which is quite frankly surprising to me how low that's gone. And we still have a lot of businesses interested in coming here. Our biggest issue is workforce right now. It's and understandable. There's a lot of people that have either they're on unemployment and they're unsure about whether they're going back to their regular job. They have a lot of unknowns going on in their lives right now, with kids in school, kids at daycare, perhaps health concerns that are keeping them from getting into the workforce. And along with that, just the typical sectors, manufacturing, distribution. Those are areas that, in skilled trades, those are areas that have struggled with finding people even before the pandemic. And we've worked hard and as the Alliance to try to push that out, that it's a viable career. Manufacturing pays highest wages on average in our county than any other industry. And we still have businesses like Anchor Hocking. Right now, they're looking to hire more than 100 people to fill jobs, and they're starting at $16 an hour. So actually next Wednesday, there will be so a week from today, there's going to be a hiring event at our new workforce center for Anchor Hocking. So, getting people back to work and helping connect them to the jobs that are there is a key goal for us moving forward. But, the big thing is you're here because you care about our economy. You care about what's going on in our community. You have a vested interest. And, we really appreciate you taking the time virtually to come here and join us today to learn about these things. So really thankful that we have such strong chambers of commerce throughout our county that engage and bring people together, put these type of programs together. And I can't thank Travis and Teresa enough for the work that they've done, and Sally and Canal Winchester to keep our businesses engaged and help us move forward. So I'll be a quick opening act and hand it off over to Teresa so we can talk a little bit more about our sponsors and our event for today. So thank you, Teresa.
Thank you, Rick. And again, Teresa Byers, President and CEO of the Pickerington Area Chamber. And we're just thrilled to have everybody with us this morning. I've done this type of event in other chambers, and when I came to this community, it was something that I felt like we really needed to have, that we needed to look beyond just our local economy and see how the world is doing around us, because eventually that trickles down into our local economy. And fortunate enough to have had the opportunity to connect with Ned Hill, who is our speaker today, and just bring this event to the community and provide such a wealth of information. And I know even up until probably late last night, he sent me his presentation and said he was really hoping for some last minute CDC updates. So, I mean, he's on top of it and knows what he's doing. And I'm going to let Travis talk about our sponsors, but just wanted to, say thank you all for joining us, for being here virtually. We know that we would much rather be in person, but we feel that, this is a great opportunity for us to provide some education, looking at our economy and how we are doing nationwide, as well as here locally in the Columbus region and Fairfield County. So Travis, I'm going to turn it over to you. And if you want to share, a little bit about our sponsors, and then we'll get going with our sponsor introduction of our speaker.
All right. Thanks, Teresa. Before I introduce our sponsors, I do also want to thank you, Teresa and Rick, for your partnership on this event. Also, a real quick shout out to Cheryl Barber, my membership coordinator. She's done a fantastic job rounding up some of our sponsors and getting support from our chamber members and local businesses. So thanks, Cheryl. We have great local businesses that are very supportive of our community, and our sponsors today represent just that, wonderful supporters of a lot of programs in our community. Our pillar sponsors today are Spectrum, and we have Brian Young, the Director of Government Affairs, on today. And we have Claypool Electric. Matt Claypool is the Vice President of Operations, and I think we'll hear from them a little later. But today's presenting sponsor is Accurate Heating and Cooling and Plumbing, and we have Michael Lenton representing them today. And Accurate is very active in the communities that they work, including in our Fairfield County community, partnering with Rick and a lot in the Chamber of Commerce's and a lot of workforce development initiatives. So we really appreciate their collaboration and support as well. I'll turn it over to Michael and let him tell you a little bit about Accurate Heating and Cooling and present our presenter today.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, just real quickly, I don't want to belabor this. And by the way, I look best on a Zoom with no video, so that's where I'm doing. But I'm not at home. I am in my office. Accurate Heating and Cooling has been in business since 1977. We're locally owned. We're based in Chillicothe. We have 8 offices, starting in Columbus, covering all of central and southern Ohio. 4 years ago, we purchased Fox Mechanical in Lancaster to demonstrate a commitment we have to be a part of the Fairfield County community. We're a full service commercial and residential HVAC and plumbing provider. And I'm going to end with that, but I do get the chance to introduce the speaker for today. I appreciate that. I do want to say I would not want to be presenting an economic forecast, so I'm looking forward to hearing Mr. Hill's comments between an election and COVID. Wow. Looking forward to hearing your comments, Dr. Hill. Edward Ned Hill is a professor. Now, everybody please pay attention to this title. It goes on. Ned Hill is professor of economic development in the John Glenn College of Public Affairs and the Knowlton College of Architecture section on city and regional planning. That takes 3 business cards to get all that on. Ned is a frequent speaker on economic development, workforce issues, and manufacturing modernization. He was recruited to the Ohio State University in 2015 to participate in its discovery theme on materials and manufacturing for sustainability, and to lead public policy research related to manufacturing in the College of Engineering's Ohio Manufacturing Institute. Over the years, Ned has been appointed to several commissions and boards within the state of Ohio and has received the Ohio Manufacturers Association Legacy Award in 2005 and again in 2016 for his work on behalf of Ohio's manufacturers. We look forward to hearing your presentation, Dr. Hill.
Well, thank you, Michael. Let's see. Oh, good. It is up. Let's see. Teresa, can I possibly drive this from my desk so I'm not saying next all the time, or do you want to do the pushing?
Unless I have you share your screen, I'll have to do the pushing, and I'm totally okay with that. And I will try to keep up with you so that I kind of catch your cues before you even have to tell me. How about that?
Sounds good. You're assuming I actually know what I wrote, which is absolutely frightening. So anyway, thank you so much. I appreciate the kind introduction. as Michael's figured out, that universities are worse than banks in giving people titles instead of money. Well, actually, they give me some money too, so that's okay. In terms of the difficulty of doing a forecast of this environment, unfortunately, it's pretty damn easy. It's because basically so much is not known. But going back to that title thing, I actually respond to, hey, you were a dope slap. So either one works. If any of you have questions or comments, I think probably the best thing to do is if you put them in the chat box, and Teresa or Travis will probably be monitoring that thing. And because there's so many of you out there, the best thing to do is have them filter it, deal with duplicates, and ask me the question from there. If there's something very specific, they can call out one of you. So that's it. Essentially, the forecast is all in the title. The COVID depression is over. The COVID recession is here. Uncertainty rules, and vaccine news triggers optimism. At this point, I could say, all right, I'm done and enjoy your late breakfast, but I think I should do a little bit more than that. So Teresa, if you can go and advance the slide, please, that'd be helpful. All right. So there are two things that I think are important to keep in mind. This public health crisis is an economic crisis. We cannot separate the two of them. So what are going to be the drivers of the recovery? They're really just a few things. The first is masks, sanitations, and holiday dinners. As much as our friends who are in visitor destination, restaurants, bars, are just having an absolutely miserable time of it, it really is the fact that the economy is not going to stabilize until we get the pandemic under some degree of control. Vaccines are out there, and I'm going to spend, this is actually going to look like more like a pharmaceutical conversation a little bit than an economic conversation. But I'll go through everything that I know about vaccines, which unfortunately right now is an awful lot. The real big unknown when it comes to the vaccines is it's no longer are they going to be here, they're over the horizon. It's what's going to be the take-up rate and how many people are going to take them, and what percentage of the population are anti-vaxxers, and whether we really will get enough immunity, a not large enough percentage of the population taking the vaccines to provide immunity. And there are a couple really big unknown questions out there about the vaccines, and I'll be honest about them. And then, so it's kind of public health is one big lever. The other big lever is, will we get a stimulus? How big is it going to be? And how do we deal with issues around the deficit? The fact is, I stopped looking at this as a stimulus payment. I now think of it as disaster relief. The same way in which Congress did not pass a second stimulus during the Great Recession, and that extended the recession by over a year. If we do not get substantial stimulus out of the current Congress or the next Congress quickly, the economy is going to stall and we'll go back towards depression and out of the current recession. Rick mentioned something which is absolutely perplexing in all this, with high levels of need and relatively high levels of unemployment. How can we still be having workforce problems and employers are having trouble finding people? So I'm going to address that as well. So that deals with kind of the bifurcation of the economy. And when I talk about the bifurcation of the economy, I'm serious about it. We now have two economies. We got the economy for people who have their jobs, have relatively high incomes, and are making certain that you can't get anybody to remodel or fix your house right now, and they're driving up the price of lumber. And then there's the economy of people who work in the service sector, people-facing jobs, and who are just having a very, very difficult time of it. And we'll get done with it. So what are the sources of economic uncertainty? Well, Europe is in the second round of the pandemic. The United States is still in the first round. The reason is it never ended. We politicized the pandemic response and public health response. And the end result is right now it's kicking the tar out of rural America. So, if you want to deal with economic uncertainty, it's pretty simple. Put on the damn mask. And I'll give you, I'll end on telling you how this works in economic ways. Consumer spending is weakening as COVID strengthening. Everything I've seen in the papers and the trade press indicates that the traditional tidal wave of shopping before and after Thanksgiving really didn't take place. Outside of the porch pirates that are essentially having a boom in business following Amazon trucks. And what we're seeing is unemployment claims are starting to rise. And as Rick mentioned, non-employment is a real issue, and it's understandable. The nightmare of COVID combining with flu just hasn't taken place yet. I'm not hearing lots of reports about flu. And frankly, as I go through, I spend most time going through manufacturing plants or talking to manufacturers from my upstairs bedroom. What I'm really finding out is that a lot of our employers really have done the right things when it comes to protecting their workforce. We're seeing social distancing in the workforce. We're seeing very rigid sanitation. In fact, we did interviews. We did 11 panels of manufacturing CEOs across the country, interviewed 50 manufacturing leaders. And what we actually found out with a number of them is their sickness rates are lower than they were last year because flu and common cold isn't there. They've done such a good job. And the employers are telling me that their greatest fear is not what happens in their place of work, but it's what happens when their employees go home. And they're really trying to teach public health as a family matter to keep the wage earner healthy and safe. The election's over with. Macroeconomic policy is going to depend on the January runoff and the Senate races in Georgia. I don't do politics, I do policy, so I'll leave that to you. But the question that I have is there going to be a reasonable middle coming out of the Congress that will get us a disaster relief bill that will be helpful. What does a K-shaped recovery mean? The U.S. Chamber and NAM really started talking about this K-shaped recovery. And let me say, if you say K, it doesn't mean okay. The upward part of the K is short, stubby, and doing very well. The lower arm of the K is pretty long and includes a lot of the economy. There's lots of pain. And I'm going to drag you through GDP accounts in a happy and lighthearted way so that you can really see what the data is telling us. Next, please. So I'm going to start the first half talking about vaccines, the vaccine horse race. I have found this to be absolutely fascinating. And I will say that the largest and most important legacy of the Trump administration is going to be Operation Warp Speed. Not because of what they did with the bureaucracy. I actually think they did terrible things, hurting the credibility of the CDC and the FDA, and that's going to hurt vaccine take-up. But the real important way is where this is one time government throwing money at problems made a difference. And what you see on the top of this slide is the number of vaccines globally that are in testing. There are 40 in phase 1 testing. That's small number testing to test safety. 17 in phase 2, 13 large-scale phase 3, of which 2 in the United States have come forward for approval. And 6 vaccines have been approved for earlier limited use. And oh my God, if you want to see why autocrats aren't good, see what countries they're in and see how quickly they were approved. And I would not give that vaccine to a pet rat to see if the damn thing lives or not. But I have an opinion. So anyway, vaccine horse race ready to roll. Pfizer and BioNTech reports they're ready to deliver vaccines on December 15th. You heard Governor DeWine talking about that. Moderna is ramped up to start delivering their vaccines December 21st. They have not yet been approved. And let me tell you, I'm so proud of what the FDA has been doing about this approval process. AstraZeneca says that they're ready to start deliveries the first 2 weeks in December. Let me tell you, they screwed up their trials. The United States is stopping their approval until they straighten out their data. Because AstraZeneca's vaccine is really the Oxford, named after University of Oxford, AstraZeneca vaccine, they look like they're going to approve, and it seems to be a political issue in Britain to approve before the United States approves, which makes me nervous about their approval process. But everything that I'm seeing and reading about the drug is that the indications are it is safe. but they've got I'll go through the anomalies that's there. So you're going to see in the footnotes where I get my data. If any of you really want to know where I follow for this stuff, there is a great publication called Biopharma Dive, DIVE. They are a trade in like an e-trade paper in the pharmaceutical industry. They've got 4 very good reporters that are doing a great job following this stuff. Next, please. So here's the horse race. These are the North American vaccines, or the vaccines that are relevant to North America. CanSino Biologics is Chinese. They're there because they were the first to get a peer-reviewed article on the efficacy of their drugs. The ones that are circled are those that seem to be the market leaders that I've got more data on below. I'm not going to read you everything on these very dense slides that look like they're written by a consultant who had a hangover. They're there so that you can spend some time with them if you want to. But the important thing is that there are 5 announced production plans and investments that affect the United States. Sputnik 5 and the 3 Chinese vaccines are being tested or distributed in Russia and China, but their approval process, it shows all of the transparency of a dictatorship, and I will get to that in a second. The technologies are at work. We're trying to say, what is this new technology? It's something called messenger RNA technology. I'm not going to tell you what the details of it is because frankly, I'm an economist, I'm not a biologist, but this is a new way of stimulating the immune system and a new way of manufacturing. This is what Dr. Fauci's been very excited about when he's been talking about these vaccines. The first 2 that are seeking approval, December 10th, Pfizer BioNTech is going to go before their independent panel. December 17th, Moderna goes before their panel, both seeking emergency use approval. When commentators are indicating they believe they'll get there. A second new technique is called non-replicating viral vector. That's what Oxford AstraZeneca is. They've got a problem. The dark horse in all this is Johnson & Johnson. We are not going to get enough vaccine in the United States until either Johnson & Johnson or Sanofi GlaxoSmithKline's vaccines hit the market. And that is important for the economics. I'll tell you why. Merck is sitting out there. I can't find any really good information on it. They're looking for a one-shot vaccine, but they just started phase 1 trial September 7th. So it's going to take them 2 to 4 months before they have enough data. Next, please. All right, this is the real dense one. These are on the 2 lead horses, Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna. Long story short, both of them have efficacy at about 94 to 95%. That means of the first 100 to 200 cases that caught COVID-19, 94 to 95% of those who caught it with their vaccines were in the placebo group, and the others received the vaccines. Remember, FDA was excited to get above 50%. These are really good. This is very good news. The exciting news about the Moderna vaccine is that none of the patients who had, or I guess lab rats, people that caught the vaccine, that caught the virus and had the vaccine got very sick. So it seemed to have really done a good job of thwarting the intense onset of COVID. The details sitting in there is everything you want, but the important thing to remember is that FDA impanels an independent data review committee that looks at the results before it can get its emergency use application. And FDA is doing a great job of leaning into the political winds to protect the integrity of the process. Long story short, sometime late December, we should see vaccines. The meeting at the CDC broke up late last night, and it said what we expected them to say. The very first people to groups that's going to get the vaccine are first responders, healthcare workers. Second are going to be people in nursing homes and convalescent homes. And then after that, they weren't murky, but I'll show you later on how I think it's going to work. Next, please. The follow-up is Oxford AstraZeneca. What's going on with those clowns? They had very large trials. So what they did was, and I got to explain it because people got excited in the press and then it's kind of dropped. they released their phase 3 trial results. And what they did was they had a trial going on in Britain and they had a trial going on in Brazil. They screwed up a part of their trial in Britain, which meant that they gave about, let me see, about 2,000 people. Yeah, about 3,000 people initially back in September, a half a dose of the vaccine by mistake. And then they gave them a full dose later. And so what the Oxford AstraZeneca group did was they pulled them aside and made that a separate trial to see how that dosage regimen worked. Then they gave people in Brazil and the rest of the people in Britain, the people in Brazil, 2 doses. The end result is when they combined and reported their data, they combined the results from Brazil and the UK together, even though they're different trials. And the United States blew a whistle and said, that doesn't work. Separate it. The UK said, good enough for us because we want to be first one out of the gate. And this is the weird part about that vaccine. The 1-dose regimen, 1 full dose, 11,000 people got that, was 70% effective, which meant 30% of the people with the vaccine got COVID. The 2-dose regimen, which is more vaccine, actually had a lower response rate. Why? They couldn't explain it. And then most mystifying all, those that got the half dose followed by a month later the full dose had a 90% effectiveness, but a smaller group. So what FDA is telling Oxford AstraZeneca is straighten out the results and give us some more data so we understand it's there. That to me was the wonderful news, that the integrity of our approval system is there. It hasn't been beaten by politics. Here's the data on Johnson & Johnson. Something odd is going on there as well. They had the world's largest trial of 60,000 people in phase 3, 1-shot vaccine, but on November 16th, they announced they were doing a brand new phase 3 trial using 2 doses. Is that an indication that the early results weren't what they wanted? Possibly. But what's important about Johnson & Johnson is their manufacturing might, and they're using a technology that will allow them to manufacture at greater scale, which we're going to need. All right, next slide, please. Sanofi and Novavax are 2 others, interesting technologies, 1-shot vaccines, but we don't even have enough here to bet on their horses. But what's really important for Novavax is that they've been contracted heavily by Canada, and the United States economy is not going to be in good shape until we make certain that those on our borders are protected. Next, please. 4 takeaways from the FDA's October meeting. Most of the experts were reassured that the FDA was maintaining its standards. They're getting 2 months worth of follow-up data. And in fact, I think what's really exciting about the Moderna work is that not only have they presented the follow-up data, their results for those who self-reported COVID, the asymptomatic carriers weren't caught. So right now they're in the middle of blood testing all of their subjects to see what's happening with the asymptomatic spread, which no one else is doing at this point in time. So the concern is we will not know what the long-term impact of these vaccines are in terms of long-term efficacy or in terms of some long-term negative impact, just because we aren't going to have a 2 to 3 year phase 3 trial like we normally do. That is, so what the FDA is doing is they're doing a balancing risk, the immediate risk of knowing what the death rate is, the infection rate for COVID, and knowing that if we don't vaccinate the population, the economy is going to be in recession or depression, versus some uncertainty about what the future impact is, even though everything is looking good. The challenges of Pfizer is that's the vaccine that needs ultra cold storage. Moderna needs cold storage, but not quite as bad. So the important thing to me is how are we going to get vaccine out to rural Ohio, where you aren't going to where you don't have those very expensive deep super cold refrigerators. The Moderna vaccine is going to be important for that. It stays well in dry ice in these new fancy styrofoam coolers they have. We are going to have to, as a community, not only encourage people, again, this is economics, just not public health, to make certain that 1 month later they get the second shot. So because we know that the Pfizer and BioNTech and Moderna's vaccines aren't strong enough without the 2-shot regime. Now, I'm glad I'm talking to a group of employers now, because what this means is the same way you got in the public health business to open up your companies and your offices, you're going to be back in the public health business to make certain not only your employees, but their families are encouraged to comply with these public health safety of getting not only the first shot in the vaccine, but the second. We are going to be sitting around and saying, yeah, we're going to act like nannies. It's going to be keep the mask on, wash your damn hands, maintain social distance. And if you're going to go for 2 shots, don't get it in the bar, get it with the doctor. It's that important. Next, please. Distrust of the vaccine approval process grew, and this is what scares me, particularly where the distrust came from. And frankly, this is out of the politicization of the of public health during the presidential campaign. That when the Pew Research Center did their polling back in May, 72% of surveyed Americans said they would definitely or probably get the vaccine. In September, it had dropped by 25 percentage points, almost to 51%. The Harris poll came out in October. It said 58% of respondents would get the vaccine as soon as made available. So that tracks with Pew, giving it some added validity. The scariest part is 43% of African-American respondents said only 43% said that they would get the vaccine. They remember the Tuskegee experiments, and the comments you're hearing is, we don't want to become a guinea pig. Unfortunately, it's African-Americans in particular who have higher disease exposure rate and have been suffering the disease because of the types of jobs they hold. And this could be a ticking time bomb. The Reagan-Udall Foundation, they didn't do a poll. They did large numbers of focus groups, listening sessions with healthcare and retail workers. What they found was a spread, was general distrust of the healthcare system spread, and distrust about being used as a guinea pig. And if we have low levels of vaccine take up, the economic recovery is going to be delayed. Next slide, please. This is a Tufts University poll that was done May, June 2020. So this is when trust was at its highest. Let's take a look who's least trustful. What you find is the lower household income, the less likely it is that people are going to take a vaccine. High school graduates are more distrustful, and African Americans are much less trustful than Hispanics and whites. In fact, back in this May-June poll, the gap was a bit more than between 10 and 15%. Well, that's pretty scary. So if you put the crosshairs together, the least trusting person is going to be a high school graduate making less than $20,000 a year or less than $50,000 a year, with a African American being at the top of that list. And essentially, we're talking large parts of our workforce and huge and important parts of our communities. We've got work ahead of us. Next, please. Vaccines, we need to build trust and make it a call to duty. When we're dealing with all this, I'm just running through the numbers. It's a dense slide. Read it at your leisure. But the best data I can see, this is pretty much Moderna and Pfizer, is that there will be enough vaccine distributed from December to mid-spring to vaccinate 20 to 30 million people with 2 shots. So if the vaccine starts being delivered mid-December, the first round of vaccinations should be completed late January. A month later, late February, they'll be inoculated. That's only 6 to 9% of the population. In fact, that 20 million number vaccines is equal to the number of healthcare workers we have in the United States. There are another 80 million. There are 80 million essential workers, which I believe includes the healthcare workers. But on top of that, we have 53 million people older, 65 and older. Hi, I'm in line. But put those things together, you have 73 million people that are a priority and you've got 30 million vaccine regimes. So we need more vaccine. And herd immunity won't take place until we get 70 to 80% coverage, and those take-up rates and distrust is so high, we may end up doing everything with about 50 to 60% taking it, and that would be a disaster, because what will mean is there'll be enough vaccine there'll be enough virus in the population, in the wild, that as it mutates, this is going to be like the next version of the flu. This is the economics. The economic recovery cannot start without public health behaviors being widely practiced, and having political leaders campaign against these practices is economically irresponsible. Wearing masks, sanitizing, distancing, vaccination, these are economic and public health concerns. It may be inconvenient. It may cause you to my sense of individual liberty is hurt. But the fact is that if we want to bring people back to work and resume normal lives, we have to all of us as a community have to take on shared responsibility. At this point, I'm sure that some of you are getting really honked off, and send the complaints to Teresa. Next. These are the 6 vaccines that have been approved. I have it here for your reading enjoyment. What you'll see is 2 of them never even got to phase 3. It was that great scientist, Vladimir Putin, that waved his wand and said, "Thou shalt be approved." And they're now they're released across Russia, Belarus, United Arab Republic, Venezuela, and Britain, God help us all. We've got the Chinese vaccines. 2 things are interesting about those vaccines. The first is it was mandated to be used by the Chinese military, so they have very large involuntary phase 3 trials. The other thing, though, is the public health regime is so strong in South Korea, Japan, and China that they cannot hold phase 3 trials in those countries because there's not enough virus. That's the reason why they're doing their work in India, Pakistan, and Brazil. And this really shows you that while the vaccines are important to get us out of it, public health makes a difference. Next slide, please. Should I talk about the economy now? Okay. The biggest thing about the economy is just uncertainty. And what those that are investing are those that absolutely have to invest because demand is growing. The rest of people are sitting on the sidelines because they don't know what's going to happen in the spring and how long this recession is going to last. Next, please. This is real GDP and real GDP per capita. What I've got is black is real GDP, and these are the percent changes in each. Now, when the GDP numbers get released, they are just mind-bogglingly confusing because everybody politically uses the number that suits them the best. And the only thing I use is the 12-month change in GDP. I don't use the quarter-to-quarter change. I mean, that's essentially making news out of statistical noise. So what I've plotted is the percent change from one quarter compared to the quarter a year previously. You'll see that GDP and GDP per capita are tracking very, very closely. And the other thing that you'll see in this is that this is the COVID depression, was when GDP fell by 10% from the year previously in the second quarter, April through June. And that we've had a bit of recovery so that third quarter was only 3% below what it was a year earlier. I want to point out that is not that different from the worst part of the Great Recession. So while we're having a recovery, it is thready. I expect the GDP, the 12-month change in GDP next quarter to still be negative, but somewhere in the 1% range. And where we end up is all going to depend on how we do on sanitation and how we do with a stimulus. Here's what you're seeing in Fairfield County, what you're seeing in Columbus, we're seeing nationwide. State and local budgets are coming in with cuts. And if they come in with cuts, that is going to be a huge drag on the recovery. It essentially is throwing fuel onto a fire. I guess that's enough with this. It just looks. The only thing I say about this particular slide is that if this was someone's EKG, they almost died back there in the second quarter. Next. All right, this is an eye chart, but this is an eye chart where what I did was I took the 12-month change in GDP that was reported in the third quarter. This just came out, late October. I believe that we're due for the second report on this with next week, but it tore it apart. I wanted to see who are the winners and the losers in this K-shaped recovery. And again, no big surprises. So what I've got here is I've got the 12-month change in GDP. This is on the left-hand side in billions of dollars, the 12-month percent change in the middle column on the left, and their share of the GDP change. And I summarized it with the column on the right. So what do you really need to know? No big deal. The visitors destination industry has cratered, and it's not going to come back for probably 2 years. And I'll explain why in a second, why 2 years. Air travel is in horrible condition. Sales of aircraft is stalled, not just because of the 737 MAX disaster, but because of a drop in air travel. Everything you're seeing coming out of analysts who work in the air travel industry indicates that air travel is going to take 5 years to begin to recover. The most important thing for the industry is the high margin part of air travel. It looks like it's not going to recover because businesses figured out that electronic communications is going to replace some part of what we used to travel for. And that came up very, very clearly in our conversations with manufacturing CEOs that we conducted in August, September, and October. Recreational services, that's going, take me out to the ball game. There's no ball game. Go to the golf course, you can go to the golf course. Okay, that's about it. But there are problems. Hotels, terrible shape. Restaurants and bars, it's part of visitors destination, part of personal services, absolutely cratered. And right now, what I expect to start seeing is the disaster that is in the restaurant and the bar industry is going to start making its way into the real estate industry as rents don't get paid and payments to banks on commercial and retail properties start going bad. We saw huge losses in transportation equipment. That's the sale of aircraft, railroad rolling stock, and heavy truck. What is selling like crazy are lightweight delivery trucks. So they're probably having a party in Springfield, Ohio right now. Non-residential construction tanked. So the only thing that's going on in non-residential construction is building logistics hubs primarily for Amazon. Healthcare, believe it or not, despite all this healthcare stuff, the healthcare industry has hemorrhaged money. And in fact, healthcare workers have lost money. Why? Well, because every time you fill up the ICUs and you wall off the hospitals, or you've got exhausted healthcare workers, elective stuff doesn't work. I think I will point a plug is I think the safest place in America right now is either in a hospital emergency room or in your doctor's office because there's no one else there. But the healthcare industry, those losses are going to affect for public healthcare institutions, are going to start affecting the other parts of government that supports them. In the case of Central Ohio, what's happening with the Ohio State healthcare systems clearly is going to affect the university. Healthcare is in serious problems. Industrial machinery, the only thing that's selling in industrial machinery are computer servers right now. Who's winning in all this? Residential constructions, furnishing, and durable household equipment. Why durable household equipment? It's because we're using the washing machine 2 to 3 times a day. And if you want them in fancy colors, I think the Wall Street Journal had an article yesterday that says you aren't going to get them. Motor vehicles are doing well, but if you notice, it's just the very high-end motor vehicle that's doing well. Grocery stores are doing really well. Gas stations are doing terribly. And that's the K-shaped recovery. Those industries that cater to upper middle income, high income service workers who can work out of their homes and have some flexibility are doing well. We are though. What's interesting is I think I still have this in this deck. I put it in and pull it out. Is we're seeing the labor force participation rate of women beginning to drop, and what you're seeing is women who are primarily taking care of, have childcare responsibilities, doing the homeschooling and all that. They're just saying, my first duty is to my family, or they're also disproportionately worked in restaurants, bars, hotels for low-income workers, and their jobs have disappeared. Next, please. Monthly non-farm employment. These are the numbers. We've had recovery from where in April there were 130 million non-farm jobs in the U.S. economy. In October, it's up to 142,000. That recovery seems to have stalled. You may see a bit of an increase in the November numbers. They're going to go down. They should go down from there because of the impact on COVID. The other reason why I think you're going to see the numbers stall or go down is retail it seems to be doing pretty horribly for the holiday selling season. Next, please. This is the unemployment rate. Now, interesting, Rick, talking about people, employers in Fairfield County starting to talk about they're having trouble getting workers again. The unemployment rate is 6.9%. Before all this COVID took down the economy, we were at these are national numbers at somewhere around 3.5 to 3.7% unemployment rate. So again, bifurcated economy. I think right now we have to continue our workforce training efforts. We have to continue internships, apprenticeships. We understand that it is that semi-skilled labor is plentiful, but it is those with some skill are going to remain in short supply. And this is going to be, if this recession goes on as long as I think it will, we're going to have problems. A break on the recovery is bringing skilled workers back. Next, please. The red line is the unemployment rate. The black line is the non-employment and underemployment rates. What you see is, notice how steep and deep the red line, the drop in the red line, the recovery in the red line is. So it means the unemployment rate's dropped. However, look at the black line. It's not dropped anywhere near as far. So that means that we're getting more and more people who are underemployed, or those who are not working but would kind of like to get back to work. So there's softness in the unemployment numbers. Next, please. K but not okay, and I'm nearing the end of the slide. This too will end. What we're seeing in the economy is that the COVID recession has accelerated the competitive advantage of e-commerce compared to traditional retail. And the reason why I'm pointing out, I mean, almost all of us have kind of thought this intuitively. The reason why I'm bringing this out, for those of us who are interested in community and local economic development, what's going to happen to those third spaces that were the connective tissues of our downtowns and our communities? The restaurants, the locally owned stores, and even some of the very big retailers, which are going to shrink. And so rethinking about how we develop and do pro formas on real estate development, when you really can't take that retail or restaurant space and put it in that pro forma as carrying the rents above it, it's a whole new world. Rob Vogt is going to be talking about that in the economic panel at 4 o'clock this afternoon at the Ohio Housing Conference. Rob and I'm doing this again for them, but Rob, who does really good work on rental markets across Ohio, is going through his data. Products that cater to upper end consumers are doing well, and we got that. If you want and try to buy a swim spa, a hot tub, or you want to build a deck, good luck. And if you want to remodel your bathroom, your costs are about 25 to 30% higher, and they aren't going to show up anyway, so don't worry about the cost. Troubled, as I said before, is visitor and travel destination. Retailers that cater to the middle of the income distribution are in a world of hurt. Main Street retail and third spaces, we have to rethink them. They're going to be tough to come back. And the office market, we were hoping, most people are hoping for a recovery around now. that market is not going to come back until the vaccines take place, despite distancing and everything else. The reason is this second surge, the Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday disease push is going to make it harder in January and February. It is true. If you have a large family Christmas dinner with grandma, may have a small family funeral 6 weeks later. My daughter doesn't like me saying that because I don't want to go out of my house for the holiday. Here's the other thing that's going to happen since the Obama administration is going to come in. We're seeing a large push, increased push for living wages, super above minimum wage jobs. My favorite socialist city, Portland, Maine, just went to $18 an hour. Holy crap, what are they thinking? And really, those of us that live in the middle of the economic road, remember the only thing in the middle of the economic road are 2 yellow lines, dead squirrels, and dead economists, is we have to shift this conversation from living wages to living incomes. We have to realize that if we exclude people from work because their wage is too high and we automate it instead, that's a social harm. And having employers redistribute incomes doesn't work. It's got to be done by deciding how we're going to get very low income families up to a living income, with work being a central core part of it. And that's not part of any discussion in this ideologically fractured world that just honks me off no end. Thank you for the therapy. Let's go next. So I'm going to give you my holiday advice, and then I'm going to give you months. Just treat your mask like your underwear. Do not touch or adjust it, especially in public. Do not borrow or lend your mask. Make sure it fits tight, but it's comfortable. Otherwise, you won't wear it. Make sure that it's clean. Wash the damn things. Wear it right side out. And if it's damp, change it, and don't go commando. Now, what does all this mean for how long it's going to be till we get to recovery? The way in which I look at it is that we are not going to have enough vaccine in the economy to start a recovery until, if we're lucky, early summer, most likely late fall of 2021. And from what we've been seeing with past recoveries, once we get to late fall, early winter 2021, we will not have a vibrant recovery, robust recovery employment for a year to 18 months after that. This one means 2022, 2023 is going to be the lasting effects. And that's assuming that we get a good stimulus bill or a disaster recovery bill. If we get a deadlocked Congress and the responsible middle doesn't come out of Congress, this is going to be with us for a while. Now, remember, as an economist, if I find the dark lining in a dark cloud, I get paid twice. So, Teresa, I turn it back to you.
Ned, I honestly cannot thank you enough. You don't pull any punches, and you certainly don't sugarcoat anything. And that's why I like you. And you also have such a great personality and bring some lightheartedness to an economy that is definitely struggling right now. We do have one question. Can you expand a little bit on Main Street retail and third spaces and what that may look like and how we can try to change that trajectory?
That is a fabulous question. And I usually don't tell people out of politeness they ask good questions. That's a fabulous question. The reason why it's a fabulous question is my honest answer is I don't know. We have to invent something new. I think some of those spaces are probably going to be converted to housing. Other parts are going to be warehoused until restaurants come back. I mean, we are going to go back to coffee shops. We're going to go back to restaurants, but it's going to take a while. The real issue is going to be how much forgiveness takes place in the financial system, because state and local government can't bail out failing businesses on their rents. There's just too much of it. I've seen counties and local governments symbolically say, we'll give you $1,000, $2,000, but we cannot. And I was in those rooms when the hotel industry was asking the state to forgive or to pay for their real estate debt. That ain't going to happen. It can't happen. So part of the question is how much are these properties going to be written down? And when is the banking system going to take the hits? And frankly, that's keeping the Fed up at night. And that is part of what the Fed is looking to Congress for, to help us on this. They know that foreclosures are going to stop. We can't have landlords forbearing rent for 4 to 6 months. That's going to take the math doesn't work. And the same thing is happening with retail spaces. So as we're looking at the space, part of the first thing is what communities can do is if someone's not paying their property taxes, and you know they can't pay their property taxes, turn it into a long-term loan, forbear it in some way. Don't be the final kick in the butt that may get them on over for money you aren't going to get anyway. And the second thing is try to think about how those spaces can be repurposed. And I think the answer is going to come from small entrepreneurial developers and builders are going to figure this thing out. I do think there are large numbers of older strip malls. The best thing you do for them is take a big D9 Caterpillar tractor, put a case of beer in it, and leave the keys in it, and let some drunk kids just drive right through the damn thing. That may be the most effective way of getting rid of them.
All right, so next question. What do you see regarding the housing interest rates? You know, obviously they're pretty darn low right now. Where do you see that going?
Sideways. There's not going to, the housing market is fascinating right now. Interest rates are low, short term, and it really depends on their short. It's going to be the short term flexible rates are going to remain low for a long period of time. And the secondary market's taking them because there is no alternative interest vehicle for them at this point in time. So I think going to stay low. The real challenge that we have is not at the high end of the housing market. I think that's going to stay pretty robust. So what is taking place in the housing market are two things. The first is what's going to happen to renters in the rental market, the low end of the rental market with foreclosures. The second thing is that there's increasing research out indicating that anywhere from 20% to 33% of the cost of housing, particularly new housing, is fees and encumbrances caused by overly heavily regulated planning and zoning processes. So if we're trying to say, how are you going to get affordable housing back? It's really going to be, how are we going to be tackling land use costs where regulatory constraints may be part of adding costs to it. And I'm speaking of that as someone where one of my degrees is in planning.
Thank you. If you have additional questions for Dr. Hill, put those in the chat. But I do want to take just a quick second to thank our sponsors once again, and also introduce a couple of them to kind of share with us how they are, faring with their businesses and what they see for the future as well in the economy, and obviously sharing everything or hearing everything that Ned shared with us. So I do want to say, first of all, thank you to Accurate for being our presenting sponsor for today, and we certainly appreciate them and their support. And I know Travis, you are right there with me, in thanking them. And also our progress sponsors, Park National Bank and Storage One Self Storage, two great partners. And then our pillar sponsors, and this is where we're going to kind of jump into them. We've got from Spectrum, Brian Young with us, and also from Claypool Electric, Matt Claypool. And if you guys want to unmute yourselves and whoever wants to go first, jump in. But, tell us a little bit about your business, number one, but then also, how has this pandemic really impacted you, and what are you seeing for your industry going forward? And, Ned kind of alluded to some of it with, being able to, working with residential. It's busy. It's very busy. So whoever wants to unmute first.
I guess I'll go. Thank you, Dr. Hill, for your insights. Definitely appreciated. My name's Matt Claypool. I am a third generation owner of Claypool Electric, which we are a commercial industrial electrical contractor, not on that residential side, definitely on the non-residential side of things. We've been doing projects for 66 years, and we focus mostly on complex commercial and industrial projects. Definitely been involved in the county, with Fairfield Medical Center and South Central Power, and with the new Magna Seating plant. We also work in 34 counties in Ohio and have offices in Columbus, Lancaster, and Athens. Most of our work is in healthcare, industrial, public use, and process control work. I think Dr. Hill touched on a lot of issues that we addressed, how COVID impacted us. Definitely re-educating our employees on, sanitation protocols and mask wearing and how to conduct themselves appropriately. And fortunately have been pretty successful. Also there was a challenge of, sending our office staff to work remotely. And our office staff is actually still working remotely with limited folks here in the office, and that's been successful. What I see for the future in our industry from a COVID standpoint, I think that more remote work, more flexibility for our employees, especially for our female employees who have to take care of their kids. Or who are mothers at home. Definitely, see the hygiene and mask wearing to be something that we're probably going to encounter here for some time and take into the future with us. Hopefully not in this way, but I think we're going to see that for the time to come. As for our industry, maybe that's a little more interesting. One thing I want to talk about is workforce. I know Rick touched on workforce, but we have had an in-house apprenticeship program for over 20 years at Claypool Electric. And for those of you that aren't familiar with apprenticeships, basically we hire people unskilled to come in and work, and then we train them to become certified journey level electricians. And they come and they start out with no skills, and hopefully, at the end of their 4-year program, they have those skill sets to make them a successful electrician. But not only that, they're gaining lifelong skills, they're gaining lifelong certifications, and they're also gaining college credit. So our apprenticeship program is articulated through Columbus State. And so when our apprentices graduate, they have 30 hours of college credit that's transcripted from Columbus State when they graduate the program. Most apprenticeship programs in the state of Ohio have those articulation agreements in place. And I think that's important to the conversation because everybody kind of wants to know how they go to college. Well, when you come to an apprenticeship program, in most cases you are in college. And I think that that's something that our communities need to do a better job communicating to the young people, because not everybody's set out to get a 4-year degree. I mean, it's not a good fit for everyone. And we want people to go into these careers because, once you're a journeyman, I mean, it takes a little bit of effort and dedication to get there. But once you become a journey level electrician, I mean, these guys are making good money. I mean, they're making $30 plus an hour. They have, great health insurance, 401k when they come to work for us, paid holidays, paid time off. So the package is there, and frankly, our guys are doing very well. I mean, even amongst the downturn, we were able to keep the vast majority of our people working, moving forward and productive as essential workers, and that was important. The other thing in our industry, I want to talk a little bit about, one of our core values is sustainability, and there is a push that the industry is changing, and the way that we distribute power in this country is going to change, and we're going to see it in our lifetime. And what that means for us is solar and wind, DC microgrid projects, cogeneration plants, and other things that are happening with power distribution and power usage. So we've been on the front end of that with working with some local contractors on solar installations. We did a 2.3 megawatt project, which is 6,750 solar panels for Denison University. We did another project a few years ago, which was a 1.76 megawatt installation at Assurance Specialty Property in Springfield, Ohio. We just got done installing a small solar field at the Columbus Zoo. We're working with our partner, Third Sun Solar out of Athens, on 2 DC microgrid projects in the Athens community. And these things are happening, and they're going to continue to happen. And you're going to see buildings start to transition away from AC power to DC power. We're currently on a project, on a pre-construction team for the NG Innovation Center at Ohio State University, which is a first of its kind commercial building that uses DC distribution and power to run the building. So it'll have wind, it'll have solar, and it'll be using those through a DC system instead of an AC system to actively manage the building and distribute power inside the building. It's the first of its kind. But that's the future. That's where we're headed. And we're going to see more of this, and it's encouraging. You know, also on the EV side, we helped Lancaster install their first EV charger, which was fun and interesting. And so we're going to see more of that, and that's where the industry is going. We're not going to see, you know, lots of big commercial buildings going in for office space. I think that's a thing of the past, but more of this sustainable energy infrastructure work. On that note, I think it's important as a business owner that we encourage our local officials to enact stimulus and to enact stimulus quickly, especially for the governments. I know that there's talk of a new stimulus bill, but our Republicans in the House and Senate don't seem to be very encouraged to extend that to state and local governments. I think that's very important. You know, state and local governments do need to have money so they can invest in the communities. And that's important to companies, you know, like ours. I mean, we do work for Ohio State. We do work for a lot of public entities, Fairfield County, the city of Columbus, you know, water and wastewater divisions. So without that investment and without those investments in our community and without the communities having money to spend to do projects such as those, it'd have a big impact on our business. So that's where I'm at. Thank you everybody for your time. We're glad that we can support the chamber here locally, and thank you.
Thank you, Matt. That was awesome. Such a great update. And I know you guys do some great work around the community. And I know a couple of businesses that you're, you know, currently doing some commercial work for. So always a great opportunity to share what you're doing. And we certainly appreciate that. Brian, what you got for us?
Good morning. I'm Brian Young with Charter Communications. Most of you know us as our business units as Spectrum. I handle the kind of external chamber relationships and economic development relationships in Southeast Ohio. So happy to be with you this morning and to be one of the sponsors. You know, we provide broadband internet services to more than 30 million customers across 41 states, including to large areas of Fairfield County and Central Ohio, offering, you know, several different products on our residential or, you know, at home. Folks are familiar with our internet, TV, phone service. Our most recent service that we launched a couple years ago, about 2 years ago, our Spectrum Mobile service. We're the fastest growing mobile company in the country. We've, in just less than 2 years, we have over 2 million mobile customers now. So it's one of our bigger businesses. In Fairfield County, actually, we've had a lot of growth and excitement the last couple of weeks. Most people know our facility that we have out on Granville Pike, where we have our technical engineering and marketing team located. About a month ago, we opened up a brand new customer care store out near the Kroger on Memorial Drive in Lancaster, where folks can come in a safe environment and look and test our products and, you know, purchase services. So we're real excited about that. We also have a similar store located up in the Waterloo Crossing Plaza up in Canal Winchester, kind of for customers in the northern part of the county. So both of those offices have extended office hours and can handle all kind of services for folks if they have questions or just want to come in and visit. You know, the company has a pretty diverse portfolio of products. On our connections side, our Spectrum Enterprise group is the group that builds fiber optic cables throughout all of our communities. Most people don't always think of us, but we have literally millions of miles of fiber here in Ohio and thousands of miles in Fairfield County. So it's just one of those things that the last couple of months with the pandemic has really come to the forefront. We've been really proud of our network. It was built to sustain very heavy, what I call gaming hours at night. And with the change from a kind of a nighttime version to a lot of daytime use, our network actually never even got anywhere close to capacity. So it was built for to expand and to offer a lot of different things, and it's worked out really well for the last couple months. For businesses who are interested in fiber products, we offer quite a few through our enterprise team. I know a lot of you know Joni Baker, who takes care of a lot of our enterprise accounts in the county. We also have very specialized sectors for government, education, healthcare, hospitality, and even smart cities. So, our fiber business is a really important backbone. Another one that we have is our small and medium-sized business, our Spectrum Business team. The nice thing about that is that a Spectrum Business customer could be, in downtown Lancaster, or they could be out in a residential area and get some specialized business services and be able to operate pretty much anywhere that works for them. Our internet speeds, which is what most people are interested in for our Spectrum Business, can go up to 1 gig, just like we have 1 gig service for all of our residential customers in the county. One of the other companies that we have that people don't always think about is our Spectrum Reach team. That's our advertising department. That's for folks who have like traditional advertising needs that want to do like a 30-second commercial on ESPN or Fox News or CNN. But also they take care of a lot of digital advertising too. So if you want to have your ads show up on streaming services or apps, or anywhere on the any kind of app or any kind of other digital type of advertising, they can help with that. And then one of the last things I wanted to talk about was our last service that we're real proud of is our Spectrum News One Ohio. It's our 24-hour news service that any customer that has our video product can get. It's available on Channel 1 on your television. And it's been a real important avenue. I know a lot of folks have told us that that's where they've watched the governor over the course of the summer, or been able to get news anytime. So those are some of the products that we offer in some of the different companies, specifically regarding COVID-19 and how we've adapted. Back in March, our folks became really, they were always busy, but became really busy as people moved from working from offices to their homes. A lot of change in equipment. The company, provided free internet service for educators, students, K-12 college students that didn't have any of our services for 60 days. We actually redid that same promotion for free service of our internet product starting again in September. So that was one way we were able to do that. The whole move to home really has exacerbated the whole idea of the digital divide that's out there. And so the company's been really involved in basically two ends of that. One is continuing to expand our network. We've made a concerted effort to, move out in more rural areas. We've actually connected, over 60,000 new homes in Southern Ohio over the last couple months. It's been while the city, most of our cities and villages where we operate are well connected. Once you get out into the townships, into the different counties, that's where where we don't provide service. It's always been difficult for us to get out there. So we've had a concerted effort to do that. So just expansion into that. And then also where we already do have service, but there's an issue with cost. We've worked with a lot of organizations and groups to try to address that need. The company's increased our digital education grant program, where we give grants for computers, digital education, labs, those kind of things. We've also continue to talk about our Spectrum Internet Assist, which actually we had before the pandemic, but it's our low-cost broadband service It's about $20, and it's still a high-speed service, and that's available to households that have students on free and reduced lunch, or for seniors that are on SSI. So those are some of the things that we've been working on. Obviously, our employees had a lot of difficulty with a lot of extended hours over the summer. We've worked to do, things for them. The company already had a minimum $15 an hour wage within the company. We announced back a few months ago that it was going to be going to $20 an hour by 2022. But during the original pandemic, with our folks working additional hours, they were also got $1.50 wage increases that were effective back in February. So we've worked really hard for our employees, in addition to all the standard protocols and safety measures that we instituted on top of what we already had in place. So the company has worked really hard to keep people connected, and going forward, that's our primary goal, is to make sure that people stay connected, get connected if they aren't, and as we face these unprecedented times, making sure that our variety of suites of companies and services that we have, try to assist as we move into this kind of new age of doing business in the country. So it's kind of what I got. Thanks a lot.
Hey, Michael, I'd be curious to know a little bit more about how the HVAC industry, since we have a few minutes left here, has been handling the pandemic, and what that looks like for Accurate moving forward.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. Real quickly, I appreciate Dr. Hill's comments. We were probably on the trailing edge of the lockdown. Because we were, mandatory in terms of the work that we were doing. But it's interesting, all of our COVID people who've contracted COVID have come from outside, none from inside the company. So his comments are true. It's and I'm not opposed to social gatherings. Large Thanksgiving, don't mention that to anybody on this call. But anyway, the impact on our business, when all this first happened, we had multiple large contracts, commercial contracts canceled. One was a $3.8 million state contract canceled within a month of this occurring, and that really impacted our commercial plumbing business in the summer months. Another thing that we noticed is people did not want us in their house in March and April. We do about 5,000 spring and fall maintenances for our customers, which means we go in and just make sure that their systems are operating effectively, so that when the cold or hot weather hits, they will be warm or cool. Nobody wanted us in their house in March and April, and then in May it turned 90, and everybody wanted us in their house. So there was a demand for comfort over concern over COVID. And we've been struggling to catch up since then with that. I would say as an organization, we're at 95% capacity. Residential is probably suffered more than commercial. And I think we're different than, we purchased Atlas Butler Commercial, the commercial division, on August 31st of this year. So we're getting a closer glimpse of what happens in Columbus versus the rural markets that we typically serve. And we find it's a lot more difficult to do work in Columbus on the commercial side than it is in the rural markets. And I think it's an openness. It's because of some of the restrictions that happen in Columbus. But still, I think we remain about 95% capacity. Our continual struggle, and Rick Sabrak mentioned this early, is employees. We need to continue a pipeline to find qualified people interested in the trades, interested in working with their hands and with a work ethic. We don't have a struggle with drug screening. And I do want to say thanks to Claypool, because 3 years ago, we implemented our own apprenticeship program, and we really modeled that after the non-union approach that Claypool used. Thanks, Mr. Claypool. I appreciate that. The example of leading out there. And there's been a keen interest in people that we're interviewing and our current employees and engaging in both the plumbing and the HVAC apprenticeship program. I am very concerned about what's going to happen in early 2021 for a host of reasons. And I just hope we can maintain that 95%. We are down 7% year over year compared to last year. But at the end of May, we were down 23% year over year. So business has certainly rebounded. It reflects some of the slides that Dr. Hill showed. So thank you.
Thanks,
Travis,
Michael.
if I could jump in here a little bit, what I
Sure.
heard both from Michael and Matt is really important. And the first thing I heard them talking about is the ability to provide opportunity for people that learn by connecting their heads and their hands together. That's the importance of apprenticeship and internship programs. Second thing is what Claypool Matt described and what his family's invested in. I kind of jokingly refer to that as Jerry Garcia economics, because you grow your own, and we're finding that to be really important, and particularly for kids that and we forget this, that whose families need cash and they need cash. Connect hands, heads with money. It's not a bad combination. And we're finding that that's opening up to lots of kids. So anyway, I congratulate both companies for, it's not only doing the right thing, it's investing in their own futures. And it really is where the future of employee training is going.
Travis, Rick, unmute yourselves and we'll do a little wrap up. And first of all, thank you, Dr. Hill, again, for joining us. This is our third time having him present to our organizations, and just fabulous information. We certainly appreciate all of you. And, some takeaways, I think that we all are a little uneasy about the recovery and how long that's going to take. We certainly want to support our businesses as best as we possibly can, and encourage our government and our leaders to, help with funding where we can. And like Ned said, we can't pay for everything. We've got to figure out ways to keep businesses viable, and come up with some unique opportunities. And I think this is going to provide our chambers and our county with opportunities to really do things different and look at things a totally different way and be able to help our businesses in a unique way. So I certainly thank you, and thank all of our sponsors for their participation and sharing. We appreciate that. And Travis, what would you like to share?
Yeah, thanks. I echo Teresa's thank you to Dr. Hill. Very insightful information as always. Also, again, a big thank you to our sponsors, but I also just appreciate everyone joining us today. We get tremendous support from our business community, and all of you represent that business community. And I think as a Chamber of Commerce leader, we would just encourage you to continue to reach out to your Chamber of Commerce. We may not have the answers to everything, but we sure have a big group of members, over 500, that we can put you in touch with the right expert, the right service. That's what we're here for, to make those connections and to find those resources for you. So don't be afraid to reach out as we move forward. But again, thanks everyone for joining us today.
Thank you.
Teresa, thank you for reaching out and providing this opportunity. I appreciate the attention and kindness that you and your members have shown.
Thank you. Mr. Zabrak, wrap us up.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Travis's point about reaching out to chambers of commerce, your Main Street organizations, Convention and Visitors Bureau, whoever you need help from, please reach out to us. Reach out to me at the county. We have a revolving loan fund with the 0% interest rate. So while we can't help save all local businesses locally, and we do need federal funding for that, we're going to do everything we can. So the last thing we want is a business to say, I couldn't get help. Talk to us, reach out, and we'll find something for you. And the other thing I ask is, and it's one of the things Matt Claypool and Michael Linton talked about, is just that workforce gap, and that you don't have to go to college. And we're seeing a change in that and a shift in that. And we're pushing that a lot through the Fairfield 33 Alliance, and engage with your schools and help tell them, the college path doesn't need to be the only path. 60% of our high school graduates don't get a college degree in Fairfield County, let's find jobs for them, and let's make sure that they identify, that we help steer them to those jobs Dr. Hill talked about that are going to help us recover from this recession. So thank you everybody. Thanks Teresa and Travis, and be safe. Have a wonderful day and wonderful rest of your week.
Thank you, guys. Don't forget to join us next Wednesday for part 2 of our Economic Outlook series. We will be talking a little bit more about HR and adapting and retaining and upskilling your workforce. So we've got some great speakers with us next Wednesday. The link will remain the same. So if you registered for this one, you can jump in for next week's program. And it certainly will be pushing this out to our members, Travis and I, to encourage additional participation. We've got another, couple of great speakers, Rick being one of them, to talk about upskilling your workforce, and just a great opportunity. Thank you again to our sponsors. This has been recorded. We will share the recording as well as Ned's presentation with everyone. So thank you guys so much. Hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday, and have a fabulous day.
Goodbye, everybody.